All right, everyone, I got my long sleeve shirt. I've got my ring. I've got my shirt half tucked. Let's talk about maybe the greatest video game movie of all time. Let's find out. Hey, everyone, this is David Starr from Watch Our Pass. Today, I'm going to talk to you about Uncharted, which is coming to theaters on February 18, 2022. It is the movie adaptation of the hit Sony franchise that has been PlayStation exclusive for pretty much since the PlayStation 3, and it is a good adaptation of the game. So I'm going to preface this by saying Uncharted is my favorite PlayStation franchise and one of my favorite video game series, and Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg are some of my favorite actors. So I went into this pretty much assuming I would like this movie, but I loved it. And so my hot take on this movie is you should definitely watch it. It's a really good adaptation of the video game to the big screen. It's got a lot of the things you love about the Uncharted series. It's got some larger than life adventure. It's got some crazy action and that humor and heart that Uncharted is kind of known for. So I think you should definitely watch it. If you like the series, 100% watch it. If you just like kind of adventures and treasure hunting type movies, you'll like this. And I think for the casual moviegoer, you'll probably also still like this. There's plenty to like in this movie. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the movie, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers. If you don't want to know anything about this movie, if you don't want to know all the secrets and how they got from point A to point B all across the world, then turn this off now. Go see it when it comes to theaters on February 18th. But if you just want to know more about the adventure, you want to see if this lives up to the Uncharted name, then let's keep going. So in Uncharted, you have Tom Holland playing Nathan Drake, who is this kind of like lovable thief. He is an adventurer. He's a big history buff. He is very, very interested in Sir Francis Drake and that story because, according to him and his brother, they are descended from Sir Francis Drake. And that is like where Nathan Drake's name comes from. Enter into his life Mark Wahlberg as Sully, who is this kind of like con artist, fence kind of person. Like he is a person that is always looking for a score, always planning these big heists, and also knows a little bit about history. So Sully's looking for this great gold treasure that apparently Magellan's crew left on their voyage around the world. They dropped it off somewhere or it was lost. We don't really know what happens, but the rumor is that it's out there and Sully is looking for it. It's worth a fortune. As you imagine, it's shiploads of gold. So Sully uses Nathan and his knowledge of history to try to figure out where this is buried, and through a very complicated series of puzzles and clues, they try to figure this out. So you get kind of an origin story. The film jumps back to Nathan's past where it's him and his brother, and you kind of get to see some of him growing up and his first forays into being a thief. And then you get to see in modern times when he meets Sully and they go on this little heist. It's a good introduction to Uncharted, and it also feels, I think, a lot like Uncharted. I feel like some of these set pieces were straight out of the Uncharted game, maybe not, you know, moment for moment, but a lot of the ideas are from the past Uncharted game. So it really does give you a good sense of the game. So during their pursuit of this treasure, they come across Chloe, who's played by Sophia Ali, who is another thief that Sully is kind of forced to work with, and Nathan, by extension, is forced to work with. And then they are always being pursued by Santiago Moncada and Braddock, who are the antagonists in this movie. They are also looking for the treasure. They are a little bit more ruthless than our heroes in the story. So there is always a constant struggle and a constant conflict. So things I liked about this movie. The first is it really does feel like the game. Like this movie feels like the Uncharted game if it was made into a movie, which is exactly what this was. You get the big action, you get the overly complicated story where you have this clue here that then leads you to a map that then leads you to a secret island, which then has another puzzle. Like you get that overly complicated story, you get the big set pieces that Uncharted was really known for. Like when it came on the scene, you had these action sequences that you would never really like have expected. Like they did some amazing things with the PlayStation 3 and then the PlayStation 4. So you have this larger than life adventure that is just entertaining. And you know, one thing that Uncharted was known for is it kind of made video games a lot more cinematic. You had a really intricate story, you had a lot of motion capture, and so it's kind of fitting that an Uncharted video game would translate well to a movie and feel a lot like the video game because they are very similar. Second thing I love is Tom Holland. Now the cast overall is very good, but Tom Holland just kind of makes it perfectly as Nathan Drake. He's a little bit smoother than Nathan Drake is in the games, but he still gets it right with the humor and silliness that he has, and it really is a good encapsulation of this character. The third thing I really liked is the action, because it does feel like the Uncharted game. You got these insane set pieces, you have these big sequences where things are exploding and things are falling, and Nathan is just barely avoiding death and just barely avoiding, certain doom. But one thing I did like about the movie is it does try to limit the body count. That was one thing that was weird about Uncharted, especially Uncharted 1, is you got Nathan Drake, who's this kind of like lovable thief, who then throughout the course of the game murders like hundreds of henchmen just in cold blood with headshots and grenades and all sorts of horrible ways. And then I think in the Uncharted movie, they recognize that maybe that's not the best way to make our hero. So there are some bodies, but it tends to be accidental. And there's actually a really funny scene right at the start of the movie where Nathan is kind of hanging from a piece of cargo way up in the air, and someone like grabs his foot that's trying to like grab onto him, and Nathan Drake kicks the guy in the face. The person falls off the cargo container to certain doom, and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry!" Like that was pure reaction. Like it does that right balance of like he's surviving, he's capable, but he's not really a bad guy. He's still a good guy. But the fourth thing I liked is the comedy. I mean, this movie has a lot of really funny, good, dry humor. It's not kind of laugh out loud, but there are a lot of really clever jokes. There's a lot of snarky comments. There's a lot of sarcasm that kind of Uncharted is known for. It really feels like the humor that you get in the Uncharted video games is translated perfectly into this movie. And on a similar note, the fifth thing I liked is the adventure. Same thing. You get the kind of the crazy world-spanning adventure that you get in the Uncharted video games in a movie format. And this definitely does span the world. You go from Boston to New York to Barcelona to the Philippines to all over. Things I didn't really love. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but there is a double cross partway through the film that feels manufactured. I mean, I guess it does kind of feel like what happens in the Uncharted video game, so I can't fault it that much, since I did like that this is a lot like the Uncharted games, but it felt like it came out of nowhere. It felt unnecessary, but it's okay. It's not that big of a deal, and everything works out. The second thing I didn't really love is some of the animation does feel like it's animated. Like it feels like it feels like it's a computer animated sequence. And what I mean is like the characters aren't moving 100% naturally. They're kind of moving just slightly off, so you can tell that this was a completely animated sequence. Now, given some of the set pieces that they have, that's not a surprise. You kind of have to, because otherwise it'd be insanely dangerous. We don't want Tom Holland or Mark Wahlberg to get hurt, but it is noticeable. It's not that bad. It's overall very well done, and so it didn't distract me too much. But you do notice it. And the last thing I didn't really love, one or two things with the ending, but they're minor, and I'm going to go into the ending right now. So, like I said, there will be spoilers. If you don't want to know what happens in the end of this film, turn this off now, because now I will tell you about the ending. So we have Nathan Drake, Sully, and Chloe all looking for this treasure that Magellan's crew left after their trip around the world. And they're in Barcelona. They have two crosses that were old relics, old like altar crosses that they realize are keys to then get to this treasure. So they finally get to the treasure after a very long sequence that involves a really interesting. Oh, I should also mention one other thing that is really cool, and I don't know if this is a normal thing with PlayStation. So the movie starts with like a PlayStation splash screen that has characters from some of the games. I noticed, I thought maybe there was a Mortal Kombat, although that's not a PlayStation game, but the first person looks kind of like that. Someone correct me. You got Nathan Drake, you've got Ratchet and Clank, you've got Kratos, you've got the Last of Us characters. It was a really nice thing to see, because it makes me think that Sony is going to push more into movies with their video game franchises, and maybe we'll get some more crossover. It was a very slick, well-produced splash screen, and it makes me think that there's going to be more to come. So now we are in Barcelona, and you've got Nathan Drake, Sully, and Chloe all trying to find Magellan's crew's treasure that they think is hidden in Barcelona. They have these two crosses that they had to get earlier, and these are the keys to figuring out where the treasure is. And so they go through this very long sequence, this very complicated sequence, to eventually arrive at the treasure room. But in the treasure room, they don't find treasure. They find a map, a bigger map, a map that will hopefully then lead them to the treasure. But unfortunately for Nathan and Sully, Chloe double crosses Nathan. Sully is up above. They had to kind of split up for this sequence. So Sully's up above. Nathan is down there with Chloe. Chloe pulls a gun on him, knocks him out, and takes the map. So we find out that she was working with the bad guy in the series, Santiago, who's played by Antonio Banderas. And Unfortunately, because of Sully's reputation, he kind of doesn't have a great reputation and not very trustworthy person. Although he's a nice guy, he is always kind of looking for that angle, always looking for that score, and not really trusting anyone. We find out that Chloe started working with Santiago because she couldn't trust Sully. She thought that he would double cross him, so she figured that she would be the one to double cross. Again, I didn't love this because at this point they had been working together pretty well, and I don't think Sully or Nathan were going to cut her out. But I understand her concern and always wanted to be on top of it. So she double crosses them, goes to work for Santiago. But so Nate and Sully figure out where they are going to depart because they know that the map is going to take them. I think Nate knows that it's going to do with the Philippines. He saw the map as well. So they find Santiago's plane and they stow away on it. They hide in the trunk of a car that is going on the trip. So on the plane, you have this kind of like crazed super warrior person named Braddock, who has been a major antagonist throughout. She's pretty ruthless. She is a good fighter, and she is basically willing to kill at a moment's notice. And that's true because she ends up double crossing Santiago. He is going through the speech about this is their treasure, and she just like straight up murders him, and then essentially, I guess, takes over. It seemed a little fast, but hey, you know what? They wanted it to be a shock moment, and it was kind of a shock moment. I didn't expect that. So now you have Santiago out of the picture, but Braddock is there, and Braddock and Chloe never really got along. So as soon as this happened, Chloe went and hid on the plane. So Braddock is kind of looking for Chloe. She wants to find her to make sure they'll tie up all the loose ends. And during this sequence, Nathan and Sully escape from the car. They've been hiding in the trunk. They're like, this is a good time when all the guards are about to explore, go find us. And so they escape from the car and try to sneak out. They escape from the car and try to sneak out because they know that they're over the location. So they're just going to try to get out and sneak out. Earlier, Sully told Nathan that Braddock killed his brother Sam. And so Nathan can't let it go. And so Sully is kind of getting his parachute on, and Nathan looks at Braddock as all the guards are kind of fanning out looking for Chloe. It's a very Uncharted-like sequence where they have to kind of like where Nathan and Sully have to hide behind cargo sequences as the guards are like sneaking around and avoid their vision cones. There are no vision cones, but figurative vision cones. But right before they're about to jump off, Nathan turns to Braddock and asks if she killed his brother. And Braddock is like, yeah, join him essentially, and like is about to shoot Nathan. And Nathan pulls the cargo release, which releases all these heavy cargo containers from the plane. So they start spewing out. Guards get hit. They fly off. Sully has already jumped off. And Nathan didn't really think this through and has to avoid cargo that are barreling down the plane. This really does feel like an Uncharted sequence because he's narrowly avoiding it as this cargo is falling down the plane. He's like ducking down. It's just going over his face, things like that. Very video gamey. But eventually he gets knocked out, climbs back into the plane. But remember Chloe, she was hiding? Well, the guards find her and they are bringing her in when all this craziness happens. And Chloe escapes from the guards, jumps into a car, that car that Nathan and Sully were hiding in, and drives that out because she figured that's her only way to survive. So she's driving out of the plane as Nathan is coming back up to the plane. And so she hits Nathan. They both fall off, and they're both free falling. Now, thankfully, Chloe and Nathan make up, and they both make it to a cargo container that has a parachute, and they just barely survive. So now Chloe and Nathan are on this cargo container in the ocean. They don't really know where they are, but as they're floating around, they see this island and this island resort. Very, very lucky, very fortunate. They make their way onto the island resort, and this is probably my favorite scene in the movie. They're coming onto the beach, and they see someone sun tanning on the beach, and it's Nolan North. And he looks up at them and says, "That was crazy. I've done something like that before." And Nathan, Tom Holland Nathan is like, "Oh yeah, sure, whatever, buddy." And Chloe's like, "Who was that?" It's like, "I don't know." But it was awesome. I love that Nolan North got a cameo. Nolan North, if you don't know, is the voice of Nathan Drake, and also looks strangely like Nathan Drake. But he is the voice of Nathan Drake, and it was great that he could get a cameo in this movie. I thought that was perfect. So now they're in the resort, and they get a room, and so Nathan and Chloe are trying to figure out the clues. So Nathan thinks his brother Sam sent him a hint about this stuff, which I mean, it's very video gamey. It's very Uncharted. Seems a little ridiculous because like they didn't even know about this map. I mean, I guess maybe Sam could have known about the map and whatnot, but it would seem kind of crazy that he would know about the secret map that they discovered and then know to send Nathan the clues. Again, it's fine. It's a video game, and wouldn't be much of a story if you didn't have this kind of cool stuff. But in any event, Nathan's working late at night. Chloe's asleep, and he looks at one of the postcards that Sam sent, and it says, "There's a whole world out there you haven't seen, but you will." Something like that. And so Nathan's thinking, like, what does that mean? And then he remembers that when they were kids, they used to hide like secret messages in ink that could only be revealed with fire. So Nathan puts some fire behind the postcard, and it reveals a new message in that postcard that says, "The keys are the compass." Which I was like, what? Like, does that mean that he has to like use the keys to like detect where it is? But Nathan figures it out. He takes the map, takes the two crosses, and realizes that each of them has like a little pin in them. If he pulls off a gem, they have a little pin. So he sets those down like your old school compass that you probably haven't thought about or used since elementary school, and uses that to triangulate on the map where the two crosses meet. So now he has the secret location of the treasure. He's about to tell Chloe, he's very excited, but he's hesitant because she double crossed him already. So he actually then writes down some fake coordinates, leaves them on the table, and goes and gets some sleep. Chloe wakes up, sees the coordinates, sees Nathan's asleep, takes the coordinates, and leaves. Unfortunately, he didn't trust her. She didn't trust him. No one trusts anyone. And so she takes the coordinates and leaves. And Nathan, expecting that she would do that, smiles, grabs the real coordinates, and he heads out as well. So Nathan uses the coordinates to find the cave. And in the cave, he finally finds the two ships. There's two ships that Magellan had that maybe have the treasure. Now they're in this big cave compartment. I don't know how they got in there. It seems impossible. Also, there's sunlight spewing down, so the cave is open from the top. I don't know how they stayed hidden, but hey, you know what? It wouldn't be much of an adventure if you didn't have secret ships that were hidden forever. So Nathan gets in there, finds the ships, is exploring, opens up one of the cargo containers, and inside is the spices. And Sully arrives. Sully had been tracking Nathan because early on, Nathan enabled like essentially find my phone or find my friends on Sully's phone so they could keep track of each other during a complicated puzzle where they had to stay together. Well, Sully remembered that and used that to find Nathan. And so now Nathan and Sully are together, and Sully's like, "Where's the treasure?" And Nathan's like, "Oh, it's in here." And he lifts up like a fake bottom for the container, and it's full of gold. And Nathan's actually a little pissed. He's like, basically kicks over some gold and says, "Here, Sully, here's your gold. Are you happy now? Like, this is all you care about. You have no friends. No one trusts you. This is all you care about." And so I was like, "Yeah, this is gold. Great. Like, can you imagine how much this is worth? Like, look at all the gold here, plus these ships. Like, they're worth a fortune." And that's when the henchmen show up. Braddock had seen Nathan in his ship going across the ocean, and so she followed him. Not the best decision for Nathan to be out in the open. You know what? He was excited. So Braddock and the henchmen show up, and Nathan and Sully hide in the ship. So Braddock's henchmen are exploring. They find the gold. They don't find Nathan and Sully, but they decide to get the ships out there. So they decide to airlift the ships out. So this helicopter shows up above, drops these chains down. They go around the ship, and the ships get lifted up out of the cave. I don't think they would actually survive because that would have been there for a very long time. Probably would have just rotted. But you know what? Again, it wouldn't be a great video game sequence and a fun movie sequence if they just like disintegrated in the cave. So the ships are up in the air, and now Sully and Nathan get out of the ship or get out of their hiding spot, and they see the guards. There's like 5 guards on the ship. I take them out, hit them all over the side. They probably all die, but you know what? It was kind of them or Nathan and Sully. So it is what it is. They take over the ship, and then Sully climbs up and takes over the helicopter. So now Sully has a helicopter. Nathan's out on the ship, and Sully starts flying the helicopter away. But Braddock, in her ship with her gold, it's like, you know what? No, I'm not going to let them escape. So she tells her helicopter to follow Sully, which this is where I thought was kind of weird because like they both essentially have enough money to never need money again. Like they're both fabulously wealthy. If they just take their ships and go separate ways, why risk it? But then you wouldn't have this big awesome sequence at the end. So she follows Sully. They try to like escape, and in this, the ships hit each other. They hit the wall. They start to get damaged. These are like priceless, antique, historical ships starting to get damaged. It was a little painful, but eventually, Sully tries to escape, isn't able to, and Braddock's helicopter is like going after them, essentially ramming speed. And Nathan sets up a cannon right at the last moment, fires a cannon, hits that helicopter. The helicopter explodes. That ship goes down. Braddock is able to jump onto Nathan's ship at the last minute, and that ship and helicopter just go down, hit a mountain, and essentially get disintegrated. So again, like she had a ton of treasure, and now all that's gone. So now on the ship, you got Nathan and Braddock, and they start fighting. And Braddock basically says, like, if I lose, you lose. And she pulls the anchor on the ship. The anchor plummets to the ground. The ship is a little bit above the water, but the anchor goes all the way down, hits the ocean floor, and like lodges itself in. So now the ship is like essentially stuck. And so the helicopter is pulling on the ship. The ship is stuck on the anchor. Braddock is trying to get to Nathan. So Nathan's climbing up, trying to get off the ship because you can see that the helicopter, the chain holder, the chain support is falling off. And so Nathan's trying to climb up to get to the helicopter. He gets to like the top of the mast, not close enough. He's like reaching out for Sully, but Sully is trying to get this backpack of gold. He had stashed a backpack of gold, just in case for his own personal score. In case everything went wrong, he at least had that. So Nathan is trying to get on the ship. Sully's going for the backpack of gold. He gets the backpack of gold, and then he sees, that Nathan is trying to get his help, and Braddock is right behind him. So Sully, thankfully, throws the gold at Braddock, hits Braddock. She falls down into the ocean, and he grabs Nathan just in the nick of time. The support breaks, the ship falls, and it falls on top of Braddock. So not good for her, but you know what? At least that's over. So then you've got Sully and Nathan up in the helicopter flying away. The ship is down in the sea, and it unfurls its sail, and for a glorious minute, it is this majestic, wonderful ship in the ocean. And then it starts to sink, and it sinks into the ocean. Sully looks down, Nathan looks down. They're like, oh, Nathan's like, oh, we gotta get some divers down there really quickly. We gotta get that treasure. And Sully's like, no, we're not gonna beat them. And he points, and there's like this like naval ship heading out there. So the gold was lost, unfortunately. But Nathan starts joking with Sully. He says, Sully, you really do have a heart of gold. And Sully's like, too soon. Like, I just lost all this gold too soon. And Nathan starts pulling out gold that he had stashed away in his cargo pants. Luckily, Nathan is wearing cargo pants. There's lots of pockets. So he pulls out, like 6 or 7 pieces of gold and gives it to Sully. So Sully's very happy. He's got some gold. Nathan's happy that he survived and solved this mystery, this riddle, this, puzzle that he has been thinking about since he was a kid with his brother. And then they look down and they see Chloe driving away. And they have a little laugh about it because Chloe backstabbed them. They backstabbed Chloe. It's all good. She doesn't look very happy, but Nathan and Sully are happy. And they fly away into the horizon with their lives and the gold, and everything's good. The end. Or is it? There is a stinger. After it fades to black, you open up on a prison, and it like pans to a cell. You see someone in there with long hair. You can't see their face. They're looking down and writing something. And it zooms, the camera goes to the letter that they're writing, and it's a postcard. And in the postcard, it says, Nate, I don't know if these are getting to you, but if they are, watch your back. And then you see an S. So presumably Sam is alive, sending notes to Nathan. I assume that will be the premise of the next movie, something along those lines. Fades to black, some credit sequence. But there's a stinger 2. And in the stinger 2, you see a wiser, more like seasoned Nathan in a bar with someone with one eye, like his eye patch. And he's called Gage. Nathan and him are bargaining, and he is giving Nathan the map, and Nathan's giving him his like family ring, the ring that like his brother gave him. That is his family crest, his family motto. Something he values very much. And so Gage asks, why do you want the map? And Nathan says, "I'll tell you if you tell me what Roman wants with my ring." So Roman is apparently the overall villain, whatever this next Uncharted movie, game, whatever it is. And Gage responds. He says he wants it because he knows it's something special to you. Then Gage takes the ring in the map before Nathan can grab the map and pulls out a gun. We find out it's some sort of Nazi map, old Nazi map. So presumably, maybe it's still like some Nazi gold. Maybe it's just some like ancient Nazi artifact. We don't know. Or maybe it's just a step in another crazier ancient mystery. We don't know. All we know is it's like a Nazi map and something involves Nathan's ring. So Sully shows up with a gun and helps out. And then Nathan at this point overpowers Gage and gets his gun. So they back out. So Nathan has the map, and then he shows Gage he has the ring. He must have like swiped it, pickpocketed it while they were struggling. And so they're about to leave. And as they're walking out, Nathan's like, "What took you so long?" And so I was like, "Did you know you have to have special papers when you travel with a pet?" Because at the very beginning of the Uncharted movie, Nathan asked Sully for some supplies for the job. And one of the things he asked for was a cat. And Sully was like, "Why do you want a cat?" And he's like, "Oh, no, that was for you. You seemed lonely." And so Sully's had this cat since the start of the movie. And now he loves the cat. And so Sully apparently was delayed because he had to file special paperwork for this cat. He was supposed to show up the day before. He showed up just in time to help Nathan take over and to help Nathan out with Gage. And the cat's in the backpack. Mr. Whiskers is in the backpack. They're leaving. They have the map. They have the ring. They have their health. And they're leaving. And Sully's excited. He's like, "This is the big one, kid. Didn't I tell you this is the big one?" They turn around and then they freeze. And something happens. I don't know if there's other henchmen or if they're the police. You don't know. They just kind of freeze and look surprised, and then that's it. Fades to black, and now the full credits happen. So the last thing, the credits now have the Uncharted theme playing in the speakers. So I love that last little touch. You get a little bit of the original kind of Uncharted theme playing as well. And that's Uncharted. As you can tell, I really liked it. I think it was a really good movie. I think it was a really good video game movie. I mean, I was kind of a little biased because I love Uncharted, but I think objectively it's also a pretty good movie as well. So definitely check it out. It's a fun adventure. It's a good movie to see in the theaters. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Please check out my other content. I've got other reviews, interviews, unboxing videos, and recommendations. Thank you.